It's another beautiful sunny day here in Central Florida, and we're finally back with another episode of Easy Meals for Busy Working Couples. So today we're doing another retro recipe, porcupine meatballs. This goes back to the 60s on Sunshine Avenue in Westmont. I've never made this recipe. It's Kathy's mom's, but I can remember them being on the menu at Goucher Street School. And we have the original recipe right here. It's really easy. All it requires is 1.5 pounds of burger, Uncle Ben's converted rice, just 1/4 cup, Campbell's tomato soup, a little garlic powder, a 1/2 cup of diced onion, and a teaspoon of salt and pepper. There were no instructions for how much garlic powder to use, so I took a guess at 1/4 teaspoon. Pour it in the bowl, mix it all together. It's all mixed up now, and I want to mention that it's important to use Uncle Ben's or another type of parboiled rice. For those of you who might not be familiar with it, Uncle Ben's is rice that has been partially cooked and then dried. The idea is it cooks much quicker. If you use regular rice in this recipe, there is not enough moisture in the meat and the other ingredients to actually cook the rice and make it soft. And I also neglected to mention that the recipe calls for 1/2 cup of water in with the meat. All right, the next stage is then to roll the meat into balls, about the size of, twice the size of a golf ball. And then my assistant will pour 1 can of Campbell's tomato soup, along with 3/4 cup of water. That's what I have mixed here. That gets put in with the meatballs. Then we'll put this in a 220-degree oven for 3 hours. 220 degrees for 3 hours. That sure seems like a lot, but we'll see. Well, there it is 3 hours later, and I threw some potatoes in with it, just rubbed with olive oil, a little salt and pepper. So we'll pull it out and see what it's like. So there we go. The only downside I see is the 3-hour cooking time. The idea was to cook them low and slow at 220 degrees to build flavor. I assume, or I think you could probably cook them quicker if you wanted to, but throw some leftover potatoes in there, whip up a nice salad, and you have a nice meal. This recipe made 8 of these meatballs. And I forgot to mention, maybe you know the origin of the name porcupine meatballs. Well, it's because of the rice, and when you're done cooking them, they stick out like a porcupine. So I see 2 problems with this meal. One, the meatballs were just a bit dry, so I think you should put a lid on it. And 2, the 3-hour cooking time makes it a bit inconvenient unless it's something you'll do on the weekend and save for later. So if you decide to do this recipe, you might want to experiment with, say, 1.5 hours at 350. It may turn out very similarly. Well, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for another episode of Easy Meals for Busy Working Couples.